Hello, welcome. How has your conference been so far? Good? Good place to be? Okay. Ready for some music tonight? At 9 p.m. on Alpha, we will do fun stuff. We will ruin some songs for you forever. But that's not what this talk is going to be about. Who thought this was going to be an AI talk? Oh, that's good, because it's not. Um, who am I? I'm Hannus. I work for a company called Access in Belgium. I have three beautiful children, and I got engaged to my wife 2 years ago. I call her my wife. We're not married yet, but there's a whole story there. So I work for Access. I have been a .NET backend dev since around 2005. But this, like standing in front of people, sharing my experiences, sharing the knowledge that I acquired over the years, is one of the things I love doing most. And it's what a lot of this story is going to be about. I'm also a line breaker. That's what we're going to do tonight. And I'm a Microsoft MVP and Service Bus champion. Now, just to give you a bit of a frame of reference, what this story, how the timeline of all of that is situated. I work for that company since 2011. In tech, that is like a century, basically. I started as a .NET consultant. But because I like knowledge sharing and I was always invested in other people's career, I pretty quickly also became a coach for some of my peers. And then I gained the title of principal consultant, which basically, Hannes, you just do all the things you have already been doing. You're just also going to do pre-sales now. And then I became the head of learning and development. And until today, I'm doing actually most of these things. But I will start focusing on that more in the future to come. So this is the frame of reference. And as you can see, because it's about 13 years, when I was thinking of how I was going to tell this story, I was like, I don't know how to structure this talk. And I was thinking of my favorite movie of all time, Pulp Fiction. And Pulp Fiction is awesome for a whole bunch of reasons. It's definitely a place where we get a lot of memes. But the memes is not really what makes Pulp Fiction great. I mean, the dialogue, in my opinion, is the stuff that makes that movie the best of all time. But the thing that made it suitable for today's talk is not that. It is the fact that the movie is not told in chronological order. You just get presented with a bunch of storylines. And they're all connected, but they're all separate, and you don't have to tell it in the order that it happened. And I figured for my talk, that will work very well. Because I get to tell you a couple of storylines that went throughout the last 13 years, and things we've noticed and tried, and tried with other companies as well. But it will seem like a story that still clicks together that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 storylines, and then hopefully I will be able to wrap that up within the 45 minutes that we have. Sound good? First storyline, knowledge sharing. I told you I love knowledge sharing, and there is so many benefits. One of the reasons that I wanted to switch jobs from my previous company to where I'm right now is I wanted to have people around me that I could learn from and that I could teach things to. So when I started working at Access, what I learned is they had things that were called competence centers. The competence center was very simple. In the evening, we gather at the office, somebody gives a presentation or 2 people give a presentation. We are there for 3 hours, but we also have food, so we basically do about an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours of content. For the rest, we eat pizza, we drink beer. We have healthier food options in the meanwhile, but 2013, this was mostly pizza and beer. And in our heads, the thing that we were doing is we were helping everybody who showed up to the talk, we were helping those people grow. That's true. But we also noticed so many nice side benefits to all of this. Because we noticed when somebody prepares a talk, they also grow. Because their understanding of the matter improves as well. And those people got recognition from their peers because they're telling the story, which means they are now the expert within the company on this particular topic, and everybody will reach out to them. So especially for your mid-year senior devs, it's like a very good way to get recognition for the good work that they're doing with their colleagues. Because we're a company, I haven't told you this yet, we are a company where our people are the product. Because we sell the knowledge that is in their heads to our customers. That's basically what we do, right? So if you need .NET developers or whatever, we will bring them to you and they will help you solve the problems that you're facing. So it's good to be recognized between your peers because somebody at another project might have a problem and they may find you, and that way you can help them out with what they're stuck with, but it also inadvertently helps our business case because our consultants will seem like they're very well connected and they can come up with solutions. Everybody wins, right? And because we bring everybody physically together, it helped us connect the whole team because everybody sees each other, they have a beer, we talk about our projects, we talk about how life is and our hobbies and all that sort of stuff. And all of it happened after hours. Now the benefit of doing all of this after hours, like the cost of doing this, is literally pizza and beer, which for a software development company is peanuts, right? Big benefit is that, well, people are investing their time to learn. Great, as a company, right? I don't necessarily agree with all of that. Because what we did see in the beginning, it was very hard to get the ball rolling, to get that culture moving. So what we decided with just a few people, say, hey, we really would love to do more of this. So we're going to set an example. So we decided, like, the next year we're going to aim to have at least one evening every 2 months, which means that we need 6 speakers. I'll do 2, you do 2, and we will find 2 more people that each do 1. That's great. And then because you have a cadence going, you can motivate other people to also try this. And we started putting it into people's targets for the next year so that we didn't have to do 2 each anymore, but just 1. And then the ball was rolling and people were picking this up by themselves. What we also noticed is this is something you need to reward. If people put time into sharing their knowledge with their peers, at some point you're going to have to show appreciation for this effort, or they will only do it once and never again. So a good place to do that is at the end of the year when you're discussing their salary, right? Say, hey, you did good last year, we're going to give you a raise. It's funny how easy that is, actually. So we got up to speed, and pre-COVID, we were at a point where we were having just in the software development branch of our company, at least one evening every 3 weeks. And our role was just facilitating and finding dates that would work, where they didn't collide with other stuff. Now that came from nurturing that for probably 6 or 7 years, right? It didn't go from 0 to that in no time, but it's just, if you pay attention to it, if you reward it, if you encourage people to do that, if you support them, then you can get to that point where it happens spontaneously. So we also noticed that we were not reaching the entire group. There were some people who were always there, and there were some people who sometimes showed up, and there were some people who were never there. And easy conclusion to make would be they're just not interested, right? Well, that's wrong. We started talking to them and figuring out what was going on. And the things that we noticed is some of these people may have obligations with their family, so they can't be there after hours. Or, hey, you're always doing this on a Tuesday, but on Tuesday I play soccer, so do it on any other day, I can be there. Or I'm at a very demanding client and in the evening I'm tired, I prefer to go home. It's like, okay, so we figured out, like, what can we experiment with to involve more people. And some people legit are just not interested, and also that's fine, especially if you're doing something after hours. You cannot expect people to show up, but what you can do is you can accommodate as many of these scenarios as possible. So we installed a camera so we can stream the talks. We are recording them so they can watch them at another time. We do it on different locations because we have different offices in Flanders. We change the time of the day. We've done breakfast sessions, we've done lunch sessions. Like, try and work with different things. Some of these things worked, some of them didn't. We still haven't really figured out what the best scenario is, because after COVID, we haven't gotten up to the same speed that we were before, but at least things are happening again, and we are reaching a bigger percentage of the group. We're having less sessions, but in general, we're reaching more people, and I think that's valuable as well. What you do have to keep in mind is there is always going to be people who want to accelerate quicker and who are willing to invest more effort into this kind of stuff, and people who don't. And it's always a balance between getting as many people involved as you can and not slowing down the people who want to go really quickly. And it's an ethical balance that I still struggle with to this day, because I do want to be inclusive to everyone so that everybody can take part in the things that we organize, but also budget doesn't allow you to do everything during the hours, because then you run out of money really quickly, right? So it's a balance that we struggle with. But at some point we figured, hey, what if we do a bunch of these sessions on a single day during hours, in different rooms, in different tracks? Wait, that's a conference I'm describing. So we had an internal conference. This is the agenda from one of the previous years. At this point, we employed 200 people. On this slide, you see a bunch of talks with a total of 40 speakers. That means that 1 in 5 people at the company actually gave a talk that day, which is tremendous. We were so happy that we even declined talks to do this, so there were more people willing to do it. This cannibalized a lot of our knowledge sharing evenings, which is maybe something to be sad about, but this is a very inclusive day because nobody has to take a day off, nobody has to spend their free time. They show up in the morning, we do a conference day, everybody goes home in the evening, and you also see talks from other teams, which is also super nice. So this has affected our other evenings, but it has also consolidated some stuff and made some stuff a lot more fair. We also noticed that some people don't like this format because it's too busy for them. They prefer the more intimate evenings. Totally fine. So, then COVID hit, and the whole thing basically ground to a halt. Nobody likes giving talks in front of a webcam. I certainly don't. I did do it for all the conference organizers that supported me before COVID, including Build Stuff. But there's just no human interaction, which is why a lot of people do this. So at some point we stopped pushing. So we're now trying to rebuild everything, and a lot of the focus goes to Hacks, our internal conference, but we also do the evenings and the lunch things and so on, and we're now experimenting like how often can we combine a team day at the office with a knowledge sharing talk, because then at lunchtime you can do something and nobody has to spend their free time. That seems to be working well at the moment. But it's mainly managing myself, because it's not because I long for the before times that everybody wants that. Everybody wants that to happen. Did I say something wrong? No? Oh, sure. It's not that everybody wants the same thing. I want this, but people have reorganized their lives during COVID. They have put way more emphasis on their work-life balance, on the time that they're spending with their family and so on. People don't commute as often anymore, so they're not in the city. Meaning if they have to show up in the evening, they have to actually drive to the city. This affects attendance to these things. And I just needed to realize, like, Hannus, it's just your expectation that is wrong here, because we're not going back to the before times. Things are just different now. That's fine. One of the things that we have noticed is that everybody who potentially gives sessions are usually people who are already doing many other things inside the company as well. And they might get stressed. So when you ask them to do a session, be aware of the other workload that they're already dealing with. This is important, because you don't want to burn them out. They're your key players. You want to keep them in the game, right? So what I take from knowledge sharing is you can experiment with lots of different formats. But leading by example is a good way to get started. Like set an example yourself or with a small group of people. Experiment with what works. Reward people if they put in effort. Very important. And then just be aware of the context. Look who's there, look who's not, try to figure out why. And be aware of the load that you're putting on people. But great things come from this because a lot of knowledge gets spread inside the company, and you have a lot of great knowledge that is going to go from one head to many heads, which is ideally what you want if you deal with tech skills. But there's another mechanism at play, another storyline throughout all of this. If we look at the tech industry, if you're a software developer, your skills grow throughout your career. You start fresh out of college or not even college with very little skills, and that builds as your career progresses. And we have these very rich companies who are willing to pay top dollar for the talented people who have already built a nice skill set, right? Seems what a lot of Silicon Valley or hedge funded companies do is to basically buy the talent in the market. Now, that means that if you're not a rich corporation, you are competing for the other talent in the market because, well, you can't afford to spend the same amount of money on those profiles, meaning that you're recruiting less experienced people. Now, what we see in people's careers is that they often build their skills in the other companies and then transition into the big tech companies to make a lot of money. It's a mechanism that is going on in our market, and it's something that even affects wages here in Europe. Now, it's very hard to keep experienced people on board. That is the result of all of this if you're not a rich corporation. And it puts a general pressure on the wages. And the thing that I find ironic about all of this is that the companies who are actually building a lot of the talent, they are priced out of the market by big tech. But big tech can only exist because these companies do what they do. And it's very, very ironic to see that happen. So, if you can't afford to buy very expensive profiles by just throwing money at them, you're going to have to do things differently. And that's not necessarily a problem. You have to deal with this by hiring people and then treating them well and building up their skill sets. It's what you will have to do if you want to give junior people a chance. If you want to hire people fresh out of college, that is what you're going to have to do. And you're going to have to train them. And this is not a way to keep them cheap forever, because if you don't match their salary to their skill set, they're still going to leave. So when you train them and you invest, you also have to up their pay. Sadly so, but that is how that works. What we also noticed is when people left our company, it often had something to do with them comparing a future somewhere else with their job today at your company. So you have to make sure that the perspective, like where's my career gonna be where I'm at right now in 3 to 5 years, that has to be visual to people so that when they go looking somewhere else, they're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. And that became a very active task that we put effort into. Now, it also means that as a company, you should highlight your strengths. Hey, we're investing in your training a lot. You get to go to conferences. We have family days. We go on a ski trip. Like everything you do well as a company, you should highlight. But you should also figure out where you're weak. And that means measuring things. And the way that we measure is this. And I know that I'll probably get a laugh in the room because I know that this tool often gets used as a marketing tool. And that's true. But what it also gives you, for those who don't know, is a standardized list of questions on employee satisfaction. And you can compare that to other companies in your industry. And that's super valuable because you can see where you're doing worse and where you're doing better. And if you can find your weaknesses and you actively work on them, you will get better every little year. You can also add some custom questions, but then you can't compare to other companies, but you will at least get valuable anonymous input from your employees. Create these tools. And doing that every year made people happier, turning down our churn rate. People were not leaving the company as often anymore, allowing us to build them further into their careers, which benefits everyone. Salary negotiations are a very important part of this. People should not ask to have a salary negotiation. You should schedule these. They should happen on a regular basis. And everybody should arrive in this talk well prepared. This is not the moment that you give people feedback. That has to be a different talk, right? You can have feedback talks throughout the year. You can have evaluations at the end of the year. And then you talk about salary in a separate talk. Very important. But having that explicit and having people show up prepared allows them to voice their expectations on a regular basis. And you can always reflect on how much they have grown, and then you can match their salary to what their skill set is. Because as soon as they have the feeling they're underpaid is when they start looking elsewhere. And that's when everything you invested will be lost. Right? So doing this on a regular basis, very important. You can benchmark salaries. There's companies that do that. You send them the skill sets and the levels of your people, and they will tell them what their salary should be. And then you can match that to what you're paying them and figure out who needs a promotion and who needs a pay raise. Now, in general, what I'm taking away from this economic thing, this is something we cannot fight, and it sounds very bleak. I assure you it doesn't have to be. But measure things. Figure out where your weaknesses are and improve them. Be aware of what's happening in the market. And decide what your strategy is going to be, because it might be that you're a rich corporation and you can afford to hire anyone at any price, so you can do that. That can be your strategy. For all the rest of us, we need to continuously improve and do better, right? And just treat your people well. That's the baseline to all of this. If you treat people well and you open the conversation about many different things, they will often tell you what they need and what they like, and you can then decide whether you want to go along with that or not, right? You don't have to say yes to everything. Now, Pulp Fiction has a couple of tangents in the meanwhile, and in 2013, I had just made coach. I had just gotten control over the training budget of my team. I went to my boss and was like, hey, I have an idea. What I want to do is I want to take the whole group. We're going to go to the Belgian Ardennes. We're going to do a day of knowledge sharing. Then we're going to do some fun team building activity the day after. We're going to put the cost on the training budget. It's going to be so worthwhile for everyone. And he told me, Hannus, we are not the Boy Scouts, okay? You're not doing this. So it's like, oh crap. So what I heard in the back of my head was, I need to make a better case, right? Because I believed in that idea. So I roped in Ton, our HR manager. It's like, hey Ton, I was planning, oh that sounds great. So we made a nicer presentation that we made a better budget for it, so we more accurately could tell him what it was going to cost. Also put in our slides like, hey, we have control over this budget anyway, so basically it's more of an us telling you that we're going to do this. So when we gave the presentation, he went like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to stop you, so go ahead and we'll see afterwards. But the cool thing about this whole thing is he decided to come and check it out. The boss drove to the Ardennes. He arrived at the end of the knowledge sharing part, joined us for the barbecue in the evening, and then drove back home. And I don't condone of texting and driving, but from the car he texted me like, hey, I was wrong. This is a great idea and we should be doing this with all the teams. And the leadership skill that taught me and that I try to also mirror myself is like, hey, when you're wrong about something, just admit it. It means the world to people, right? It also taught me, like, I do whatever I want now. I just need to make a very good case for what I'm going to do, right? So that was that. I forgot to click through the slides, but this is the first weekend that we had in 2013 in a very nice venue. And the takeaways for me is like bringing people together is always great, also for activities that are not tech related. What I also learned that weekend is a lot of my people are afraid of heights because we had scheduled a rope course for the team building activity. Yeah, better activities. But don't be afraid to fight for stuff you believe in, because it might end up changing a company. Now, one of the things that I think that I feel most passionate about the last couple of years is at some point we needed to build an arsenal. Because we're in the business of building these people. We hire a lot of them fresh out of college, and we need to make sure that they get training, that they grow, and everybody does that in different ways. There are so many ways to build knowledge. You can read books, you can go to classroom training, you can attend workshops, you can go to conferences like this one, you can learn on online platforms, you can read blog posts. There's so many ways to build up a skill set. You can hack together with a couple of friends at a hackathon. Now, a lot of these things, not all of them, but a lot of these will either cost you time, which for a company is also money, and money. So money and money. So you're going to have a budget for that. And I've been lucky to have had a generous budget for the teams at all time, but we had to distribute that budget. So when we had that budget, we figured out we are not supposed to just spend it on their behalf. People should have control over their own budget. So we did a questionnaire and got everybody's input. Like, hey, we've got training budget. What do you want? What trainings do you want to follow? What skills do you want to learn? What conferences do you want to go to? And we helped them figure out the puzzle together with us. And we help them find what's available out there. When they're unsure of what training they could take to build a certain skill, we would help them search. And we noticed that for some people, we had to push them to spend their budget. And this is something I very strongly believe in. Training budgets are not where you save money. Never, right? If you're not spending the entire budget, you're doing it wrong. Because that's a missed opportunity. So we had to push everybody to spend their budget, and we made that puzzle. It's very, very intensive to do this. Like, it took a lot of time each year to puzzle the whole training budget for the team. So, second step is like when we were doing this, we figured we need to optimize. If we have 6 people that want to do the same training, we're just going to hire somebody to come teach it in the company. That makes it easier for us to jump through the hoops because some of them might want to take it on different days. We're just not going to do that anymore. Hire the trainer, bring them to the company. It's also a bit of team building. Nice. Going to a conference in group. Like 17 of my people went to NDC Porto a couple of weeks ago. Super nice. They all came back energized, both from going out in the city and from being at the conference. And we started to plan our workshops a little bit more time efficient as well. Because I truly believe that you can't sit in a classroom for 8 hours and still be learning at the end of the day. Doesn't work. You can probably learn for about 5 hours a day. So you can also plan your workshops on afternoons and lose less work time in doing that, but still get a lot of the benefits from doing full day training. So that's some stuff that we experimented with as well. And we extended the questionnaires and the input that people could give. And we've moved into the last phase of bonus idea. Yeah, I forgot that was on the slide. One of the rules we implemented along the way, because it was more hassle than it was worth, is that we would never deduct books from the training budget anymore. Because a book costs what, 50 euros? Typical tech book. If somebody spends 2 hours reading that, not even reading the whole book, like 2 hours getting knowledge from that book, that's already worth it, right? So we don't feel, and they're spending their own time. So we didn't feel like discussing about those little budgets anymore. So what we just decided is like, hey, you want the book, let us know which one, we'll have it delivered to your house. When you're done with it, you can bring it back to the library. You don't have to. If you want to keep it, that's fine too. It's not worth the hassle in the bigger scheme of things. Because if you compare to the price of classroom training or conferences or whatever, books are cheap. So we just made them free. But then we started putting all the rest of our training catalog into a self-service system. Because one of the things that we were faced with is people went, hey, I heard you organized that training for another group of people. I would have loved to attend that as well. Well, yeah, but you didn't say that when you answered the questionnaire, so we put you in the thing that you asked for. Yeah, but that's interesting too, right? So we wanted to make that visual, like what's available. And we put all of that into a self-service tool now. So people can log on to our training tool, and if they don't have inspiration themselves, they can look at all the conferences that others have suggested and that have been put into the tool, or all the workshops that we are organizing. And we let them just shop for their own training plan. But we again noticed, like, you have to push people to spend their budgets, because some people will have their training points and they're not doing anything with it. And that's a sad thing. So that's a follow-up that we still need to do. Although everything is in the hands of our people, they still need to make those decisions and actually spend the budget. Along the way, we noticed that sometimes we were buying trainings from companies that did professional training. And sometimes that means, and I hope there's no trainers in the room, but sometimes that means that you get somebody who has zero production experience with the thing that they're teaching. They just studied the material and they're now teaching it in the classroom. And that's great until somebody asks 3 questions, and then it's like, I don't know. And what happens then is that people come back from that training completely disappointed. So you've wasted time and money, and everybody feels bad about it afterwards. So on the other hand, we noticed we have a lot of senior people who have knowledge in their hands that they would love to share with their colleagues. They may not be the best teachers, but they do have the experience and the knowledge. So if we can, instead of hiring a trainer, facilitate their teaching skills and give them a workshop on presentation techniques and so on, so they can teach their colleagues, that's usually just as cost effective. But again, all the benefits from the knowledge sharing part, giving people recognition for their skills and so on, that also applies here. And as soon as you have developed that content, you can monetize it in different ways as well, because you can sell workshops to your customers, right? And none of this is about saving money on our training budget. Let me be very clear. The reason that we do internal training is because we want to improve the quality and improve the quantity. We want to give people more training for the same budget. So if we're optimizing for cost, it's all about that. More training for the same money. External traders, because you're now saving money on the internal traders, what you can do is you can actually hire industry experts for everybody you're bringing in from the outside. So if you have a subject that you really want to teach, instead of going to those training companies and get like sometimes great teachers and sometimes not, you just get somebody who you know is an industry reference about this thing. You bring them in. It's going to be very expensive. Those traders are often upwards of 10K for a training. But then you have the whole classroom that you can fill up with your people. So you allow some of your people to go over their training budget for the year just to make sure that the classroom is full and that everybody who would benefit from this is actually in that room. But it's very cost effective to get the best possible training you can get. You bring in these industry references. We don't do this every month, right? There's a couple that we bring in every year, but it's got to be worth it because it's got to be skills that we don't already have in the workforce. That's what we're aiming for with these. Something is, oh, I know what's going on. Yeah, that's Lenovo. I'm presenting from an iPad because my laptop is broken. They should be repairing my laptop today. We applied that same concept, all of our internal training, to a boot camp. We love to hire people fresh out of college and give them a chance. We hire for attitude, not for skills, because, well, fresh out of college, how many skills can you actually expect? But then we do a 6-week boot camp with them, and we put seniors in front of them, meaning they're immediately well connected within the company. They know who's doing what and who they should talk to about certain subjects. It also closes the skill gap between being freshly graduated and what our customers would expect. And we don't only do tech skills there, because a lot of it is also about how you explain things, how you present things, how you interview when you talk to a new client, and so on. And we started doing this with external trainers, and over the years we have evolved to the point where we're now teaching all of it ourselves. One of our coolest products. And I don't like calling soft skills. I have started calling them core skills. I know there are other terms out there. I don't think there is anything soft about soft skills because soft skills can break somebody's career. If you're bad at communicating, if you're bad at presenting, if you're bad at interviewing, if you're bad at talking to people in your team, that will definitely affect the point to where your career can grow. And because we feel that this is career blocking, and because tech people don't always choose this training over other training, although they need it, we have taken this out of the regular training budgets. We are doing trainings about this every year, a couple of groups, but it's not something people have to spend their points on because we feel like this is so core to people's career that we need to do this. And it's not just about remedying skills that are not there. It's also about when people grow, they need different skill set. If you become a senior dev on a team, you're going to need to learn how to talk to senior management at some point. You're also going to need to learn how to coach your peers. And those are different skills that people need like experience with. And you can train that, but you have to put in the effort to help people learn these things. So I started calling them core skills. I hope if you take anything away from today that you will start doing that with me. I would really appreciate that. Now, what I do with this whole training catalog is we make it so that everything that people need to grow in the next year should actually be available to them in one way or another. If it's not there, they should be able to ask for it and then color outside of the lines with this. But we should allow them to spend the money where it's really needed. The stuff that works for them. If for some people it's books, then they should be buying a lot of books. If for some people it's going to a conference to be inspired and then hacking away at home with the stuff that they got in touch with, they should be able to do that. If for some people it's taking a workshop because, well, that's the only way they can free up time from their family to actually learn something, they should be able to do that. That's what all of this is about. And you have to push people to spend their budget, okay? Remember that as well. Because if we're not spending the budget, we're missing out. Now the last story, I'm going to do a quick time check. How much time do we have? We have 8 minutes. Okay, should be fine. You've heard me mention the term coach a few times. You saw it in one of the first slides with my career. Now what we have started doing throughout all of this is people need support. Somebody needs to tell them to spend their budget. But also somebody needs to hold up a mirror or somebody needs to be able to give them advice. And that's what a coach does for us. Because if you give all these things to a random developer, we have seen that one of three things can happen. Some people will know what to do straight away. They will maximize their budget to get everything that they need and they will go like a rocket. Some people will try a lot of different things and a lot of different directions until they finally find out what they want to do. And then after a few years it clicks and they start moving forward. And for some people it's just overload. They see the catalog and it's like, I don't know what to do. And none of these are wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of those. It's just people's personalities. But if you put a coach in front of these people, they can help to actually get that arrow pointing in the right direction quickly enough. And this is not a hierarchical role. This is a role in support of other people. Our coaches are nobody's boss. They are there in support of the rest of the team. But they help with a bunch of things. Finding a training path is only one of the things, but it's more like general career advice, making that 3 to 5 year plan visible to them, like where is my career going, setting goals with them. I don't believe in goals being put on somebody's list. You should be setting goals for yourself. But a coach will help you do that, like set sensible goals for the next year. And it's also the first point of contact to unblock people in the organization. It's very important for people who are new to the organization, like where do I go to find this, or how do I request books, or like all that sort of stuff. Like a coach can help with all those things. First contact for everything happening. The thing I had to learn most as a coach is sometimes you have to be willing to drop your entire preparation, throw it in a bin, Because you're having a conversation with somebody and you notice they're not feeling well, and the story comes out like something's going on at home or something is going on at the customer or whatever. And then the most important thing you should do as a coach is listen to their story. It's the best thing you can do for them. It's also the best thing you can do for your relationship with that person. But that means like you're not going to have the talk that you had prepared. That's fine. Throw it in a bit. Have it another time. Now, the ideal profile for coaches are people who have a background in the same thing that the people they're coaching. And it need to be people that have great interpersonal skills. Just being good at the tech is not enough to be a good coach. You can teach coaching skills. There are companies that will help you with that. But it needs to be somebody who gets out of bed to help their peers grow, to help them push forward. And for us, these are people that operate from within the team. They're still consultants themselves, but they get a bit of their time that they don't have to be at the customer and that they will spend on helping their peers push forward. And in the long run, we believe that that pays off. We've been doing it for more than 10 years now, and we don't regret any of it. This is a very good way of supporting as many people as possible because people need different things. And if you just offer them stuff, some people will accelerate, some won't, but a coach can bridge a lot of that gap. So if you want to unblock that, think of a coaching structure. This can be very informal. You can start small. It can just be appointing a buddy or whatever. But it's mainly a facilitating role. This is not somebody who's going to stand behind you and tell you what to do, but it is somebody who holds up the mirror and tries to help you reflect on your own career. And it should be somebody who has the authority to escalate things. When they notice something going on, like, hey, this person is not happy at their customer, we need to do something about it, they should have the authority to escalate this to the account manager team to get that resolved, right? But it's the day-to-day point of contact for people's careers. Now, where do you start with all of this? Because I've given you 5 things that you can think about throughout this whole thing. The biggest hurdle in all of this is that you can't pretend to care about people. If you want to be successful at any of this, you're going to have to actually care about people. If that's not in your nature, this is not going to work, right? I know that's sarcastic, but it's true. Because people know this, right? So if you want to be in the business of treating people well and helping them grow, you should actually care about them, right? And this has taken us a decade. And I've seen companies around us struggle with the same things, and it takes them 6 or 10 years as well. And the biggest thing is, with people, your feedback loop is different. If you come from tech, you are all used to pushing run in your IDE and getting almost instant feedback on the thing you just did. If you work with people, your feedback loop is months, at best years, realistically. So you have to trust that you're doing the right thing, and you have to try to measure as many things as you can, but you have to trust that eventually you're going to be at the point where you want to be. It's slow. But what you get if you do all of this is that you will see the people around you grow. You will see people remain motivated throughout their career. You will see people remain around the company for a longer time. So you're building something very long term. And I think that to me is the most important thing. Because it's not for a person to win in their career that the company has to lose. It's not because the company wins that the employee has to lose. It's not a zero-sum game. We can win together. And that's what all of this is about. Because we have, I'm going to come back to this, we have come to the point where we're at the end of the movie and Jules is coming to the insight that he has changed. And human resources, I hate the term resources because these are people and they often have names, right? They're not resources. Call it human relations, same letters, different thing, right? This human relations is a different way of looking at it. And you have come to the insight that you need to change your ways. And that's what Jules does at the end of the movie. And you can start small, one thing at a time. Don't try and do all of these things at once, but pick something that resonated with you and try that first, and then build the rest on top of that. And involve as many people as you can, because the more buy-in you have about all of this, the better it will work. If people know what you're doing and why, then you will get more buy-in from everybody. And don't get too nervous. It takes a while. Some of these things, like knowledge sharing evenings or a buddy or coaching system, you can do without a budget even. So you maybe don't need permission. You can just experiment with it within your team if you think it's a valuable thing to have. Don't give up. The feedback loop is long. You'll need to experiment. There will be setbacks, but as long as you're open and authentic and willing to admit when you were wrong, right? You will get a lot of credit for people for working on these things. You will get a lot of respect for trying that, and you will have a very positive impact on the bigger whole. So we've come to the end of my talk, about on time, I think. Yes, so I will take questions in the hallway. This is the end of Pulp Fiction, the movie. I have one more question for you before we leave. If we would rearrange Pulp Fiction into chronological order, what would the last line of the movie be? Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead. Thank you thank you very much. I hope to see you tonight at the gig. If you have questions about this, or you want to talk, or you have remarks, come and find me somewhere at the conference. I'll be around. I love talking about all of this. I hope you got something out of this.